Rod, and we've got Rebekah, who a lot of you know, I think, but can you just do a brief intro of your career to date?
Okay, my name is Rod Smith. I've been in the industry for a number of years in various capacities, from high street retail, from the first sale through video, through to being a cinema projectionist, cinema manager, through to buying for a chain of retail distributors, and then acquisitions for an American cable company, and then moved into which was then micro budget production, around 200 grand, and now there's films being made for a tenth of that. And I started my own production company 3 years ago, and I'm now hopefully about to start filming my third film in March in Rome.
Very good.
That's me.
Super. My name's Rebekah, and I'm the CEO and founder of a company called the Film Festival Doctor. And what we do is we place our clients' films in the right film festivals around the world. I also help them find the right sales agent and PR. We have worked on a number of projects, including Neil's movie, 28K, back in the day. And we specialise in nurturing and representing filmmakers from South Africa. We also work with filmmakers from all over the world. And we're working on a big film right now, which is the director's cut of George Michael Freedom. So that we're doing some big festivals coming up in April and May onwards. And what else are we doing? Quite a few films of ours have been BAFTA shortlisted. And one film we worked on was Oscar nominated in 2016 called Shock, that we consulted on. He actually came here and did a little talk. And now we're branching out, doing bigger movies and high-end independent movies from all over the world and South Africa.
Very good. Thank you very much. Can I start with you, Rod, and start talking about aggregators? I know we haven't got our man here, but you've had experience with dealing with aggregators. Can you basically explain what one is to start with?
Well, we're independent filmmakers, they have no hope whatsoever of going to any of the platforms themselves as an independent. There's just too many people, they won't see you, they have preferred third-party aggregators that will be their preference. And obviously it's another middleman in the way that's going to take a fee, but it's their services and they're providing you with their relationships. A good example in the UK is a company called the Movie Partnership, who are digital aggregators. They have good relationships with Netflix and Amazon and iTunes, and regularly go out to the States every month to have face-to-face with these guys. They will put your film onto all the digital platforms. They will use third-party people to release theatrically for yourself as well. There's a guy, probably many of you know, called Martin Myers, has been doing theatrical for indies for years. He's their preferred person that they use to set that up. I've recently self-distributed a title, which is very difficult, but I use them for the digital side of things. And I'll let you know when I get my first royalty statement.
Very good. And Rebekah, you've had experience. You work within an aggregator, don't you, at times?
Sorry?
Do you work within an aggregator company, or you're affiliated?
We've actually worked with the Movie Partnership before. Some of their movies we actually had to help get into festivals before it went onto iTunes, etc., and VOD. But we tend to work mainly with producers.
Okay. So you can't just put your film on Netflix?
No, not at all.
Or iTunes?
There is I haven't done it myself. Apparently there is a way of uploading direct onto Amazon. You get lost. It's almost impossible. I wouldn't recommend self-distribution to anyone. Right. It's finding the right distribution partner, and obviously the difficulty these days is getting a distributor to actually pay in advance for your film. Because 99% of them now will say we'll do it for share of revenue and no advance, we'll recoup our costs, and it's a 50-50 split after that, and it gets difficult. It's fine for them, there's very little risk, but the film is your baby and you've got everything up there, so it's almost impossible. There'll always be one or two films that will break out on self-distribution, but it's not recommended at all. There are skilled people that do marketing, skilled people that know how to do the online presence, and they have a worth and a value. And you, as much as you think, if you're doing your own social media and you're promoting, you're in your own little bubble. And the people that are saying, yes, I love it, are in your friend groups and your contacts, and you think you're getting a wide audience, and in essence, you're this big and you're not this big. And you're just talking to the same people all the time. So yeah, it's not something I'd recommend anyone doing.
Right, sure. Do you know what sort of fees we're looking at though to be?
It depends. It depends on who you go with and what relationship you have with them as well.
Right.
The aggregator, you need the aggregator more than they need you.
Right.
It's a market where there are so many films out there now and so many looking to get onto these platforms that they can pick and choose what they do.
Yeah.
You could end up anything between 15 and 20% on an aggregation fee, but it's 15 to 20% you're paying them of something rather than of nothing if you don't get up there at all.
When you say 15%, you're getting 15%?
No, they will take 15 to 20% of a fee of whatever fees they get of yours. Plus there will be the recoupment of whatever costs that they spend. So for example, if you generate £50,000 in revenue, they obviously get 20% of that as a fee automatically.
Right.
And if they've spent any marketing and other costs they've attributed, that comes out of that. So out of the 50 grand that gets raised, you could end up with 10, 15 grand possibly.
Right.
Depending on who the company is and how creative their accounting is, you can end up with nothing.
Right. But you pay the fee up front as well?
No, you don't pay a fee up front.
Oh, right, okay.
I was fortunate with the movie partnership. They fronted up a marketing campaign of another 15 or 20 grand for my last film, but which is nothing, it's like a plaster over it. But they don't do that for everyone.
Right, so they are pick and mixing what they're taking.
Yeah, because they can.
Okay. How much PR do you get out of them once they do pick you?
Well, they used a very good PR company who I highly recommend called Strike Media, who did a very good job for us. They're relatively new, but they're really hungry. You tend to find that the bigger PR companies don't know how to work with smaller movies. They're used to bigger studio films, bigger budgets, and they paint with a broad brush stroke, and they know if we do bus sites and underground posters and we put money in radio and TV, we're going to get out there. But most small films don't have that budget at all, and you have to get creative. The only good word I have to say about a particular company that don't exist anymore, they were very creative once when they had Kidulthood out, and they did a giant billboard poster outside the Houses of Parliament replacing the film cast faces with Gordon Brown's Parliament, and it made the news for about 3, 4, 5 days across press, across TV, and it was a really clever thing. It was guerrilla marketing at its best. I think.
Right. Yeah. On that count, what does it cost to get a poster on the tube?
Have
you done that?
I've done that.
Hybrid, isn't it?
I actually am a big fan of underground film posters. Depending on when you do it, you're meant to be up there for 2-3 weeks. But depending on what time of the year it is and what the turnover is, they can stay up for a lot longer. You used to be able to get a package where you could buy it near tube entrances near HMV shops. So if the DVD was out, you could buy a package where, so you knew that as they pass, and it's literally sweets at the till. Obviously, with the HMV losing half their estate, that's not particularly effective anymore. But it's about you could spend about £3,500 and get probably about between 65 and 85 posters up on the underground.
Really?
And some part of it is vanity.
How long?
Because you think it's great, I can see my film. Yeah, exactly. It's big, but it's 2 to 3 weeks. But if no one else follows you, they can stay up for a couple of months, depending on some outlying stations. They're up for ages.
Some that's been on for a year.
But they are really effective. Bearing in mind, there's 8 million people living in London. Apparently, on any one day, there's 15 million people in London. So you have the potential for a massive audience.
Yeah.
It's one of the best cost-effective ways of promoting your movie. Press, nobody reads the papers anymore. Nobody looks at magazine articles. So it's good.
That's pretty cheap. Yeah.
I think so.
That's a good shout. Yeah. Can we jump to the film festivals? How relevant are film festivals for getting yourself online? You know, Netflix looking at festivals, these aggregators looking at festivals and picking you from that. Is that a good way to get in with an aggregator?
Not really. Festivals provide like an alternative distribution network. So obviously it's expensive going into cinemas. You know, doing distribution cinemas theatrically by yourself is going to cost minimum 25k or 30k, isn't it, or more? So festivals provide that other option where you do it for a lot less or nothing. So festivals are there to provide like your world premiere platform, which can then generate good press. And also with certain festivals, if they're of a higher tier, something like Rebekah, South by Southwest, Cannes and Berlinale, which is just happening right now, you can set your sales price. So that will be for when it's being sold by a sales agent, you know, having those kind of laurels and winning certain awards, it can certainly up it a little bit more than what it would do.
Cool.
But in terms of like aggregators, not so much, because they get their product from the sales agent, or just.
But it's a good place to get a sales agent at a festival.
Well, yes, it is.
They?
It is and it isn't. So it's not a case of really sales agents are going to every festival, like London Film Festival, Edinburgh, to find stuff. Sometimes there can be people there scouting for movies. It's more a case of getting noticed and raising the service of visibility, like building a presence, so to speak. Yeah. So people then, when they go to festivals, they're going to be not audiences but industry. People say they've heard about it on the grapevine, and then slowly it gets attraction, and people around the sales agent world hear about it potentially, and then they get a screener. It's not so much deals are done at festivals nowadays that aren't markets, because there's negotiation and there's so much competition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend approaching a sales agent at a festival for a film, because they're there to sell. They're not there to acquire product. You go to them in between markets.
Yeah.
Really?
Unless you arrange on the final afternoon of the final day of the market, and you specifically ask for someone that's in our acquisitions team.
Yeah.
But often it's just the sales team that's there. So you only get one chance at first impression. So it's probably best to do your research and contact them prior to a market or after.
Right. So they're literally just trying to flog things to people rather than buying at all the markets, even can and.
Yeah.
It's like buy one get one free. Kind of.
Yeah.
But festivals are extremely important for independent filmmakers, especially with feature films, because the cost of distribution theatrically, having to do it by yourself, is a lot of money. And a lot of distributors nowadays don't really have the budgets for smaller movies that are good indies that have done well on the festival circuit, because it's too much money to put onto cinemas for, say, even a couple of days, because it can really mount up and they can't really recoup the costs without any stars in it, I'd say.
Do you have to have a certain sort of film for a festival, though? The more drama-based and genre-based stuff?
No, genre can work. It depends upon how strong the story is. So it's all about festivals, how original the story is. If it's a commercial kind of story that's, girl meets boy gets the girl back, they get married at the end, it's not going to happen, because it's formulaic. So what festivals are looking for is, trailblazing kind of talent that's, on the next wave of good visions, showing potential for a really good, strong feature film for the next movie or whatever. But it's all about the story. So the more unique and original it is, the better. You can take the usual conventions and create them to be something a little bit more different and present it in a way that is not mainstream. The way I kind of define it is, I call them, a festival film is one that can be mainstream independent. So it might feature, say, mainstream or recognisable faces, someone maybe that's up and coming, or won the Rising Star Award, the guy from Get Out, whatever, someone that's rising, or Parker Posey's a good one. And the production values are very, high end, maybe not millions, but they're made for, a good budget and looks very professionally done, no matter how much it was made for. The independent bit is that it's kind of the story is not mainstream or commercial. So it's maybe some familiar faces, but not really a movie that's very formulaic.
Yeah.
I'd say, really.
Okay, that's good. So back to online, the same thing, really. Do you need somebody in Game of Thrones in your film to push through online?
I know it's a often misquoted quote, but the William Goldman quote that nobody knows anything, nobody knows nothing. You can go to a distributor and say, I've got this great script, and I've got, what names would you recommend I have in it? Oh, you would love the script. If you can get this name, and this name, we'd really be interested in your movie. And you go away and you get those names, and they say, well, now it's execution dependent. We're going to wait and see what the finished film looks like before we make them. And then you watch it and they go, yeah, we like it, but we'd like you to make some changes here, and here, and potentially, and you spend more money and you do those changes, and they go, yeah, it's not for us. Cast is interesting. I've done a number of films where we've used, if you can't afford names, you get faces. And if you have enough faces, the idea is it's meant to make up for a name. So you pick out people that were in soaps and Game of Thrones, and we brought Ian Ogilvy out of retirement for We Still Kill the Old Way, and he loved it. But it was the first film he'd done since Death Becomes Her, about 20 years earlier. And it's nice, but ultimately there's no cachet. The last film we had Charlie Cox, who's Daredevil. We had all the Lock Stock guys back for the first time ever since Lock Stock. We had Vincent Regan, Annette Crosby, Mackenzie Crook, Eve Miles from Torchwood, Freema Egerman, and a great ensemble cast. ultimately it didn't make any difference. If people don't fall in love with the story and the script, and the issue that I was told with the last film was that it fell between genres. It wasn't a horror, it wasn't a comedy, it wasn't a thriller. But it was written that way. It was from a writer that we all know, and he was a very good writer. He was BAFTA nominated for his last film, and I'm really proud of the movie. But for whatever reason, it didn't sit with audience. It played well at some festivals. We did great business in Dinar Film Festival and the Belgium International Fantastic Film Festival.
Brussels, yeah.
They absolutely loved it there. It did Telluride and did After Dark in the States. And foreign audiences seemed to like it a lot more than English-speaking audiences. But the names made no difference. And I think you get lucky. I think anyone tells you they know who's the right name, who's the right face, because we all know who the great actors are, and we can't afford them, and so you look for who's not quite there. So a film that I'm doing next, I've got a young, up-and-coming British-Spanish actress that's been in a big Netflix show. She's in a film with Michael Keaton. She's just done a big horror film out of Canada. I'm hoping I'm going to catch her. It might be that I'm too early or I'm too late, that she's had her moment and she's not going to have any more, or it will be the movie after my movie where she takes and you don't know. You make the best choices you can, but you have to go through the thought process and make. And it's always good to speak to sales agents to say what names are working for you in the current market. The only problem is when you've made your film, it's a year later, and there'll be another batch of faces that are currently working, and the faces from a year ago don't work anymore. Yeah. So you just make your best choices. Stick with your gut decisions. Stick with your own. If you're confident with who you've got, stick with it. Because ultimately, I don't think it will make any difference. People drop in stunt names and into films now, and some work, some don't.
YouTubers are the latest thing, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm totally against it. I'm totally against. I was off an Italian guy that's got 5 million Instagram followers. He's got millions on YouTube and everything, and he's a fashion model that wants to get into acting. And we got him to tape, and he just wasn't very good. And it doesn't matter that he can tweet about it to his followers. I don't think it makes any difference whatsoever. It has to be a good performance based on a good script, you know.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Any questions as we go along? Yeah.
I'm just going to ask you a bit about your casting, to explain how you go about casting. Do you use a casting agency, or do you work within your own team?
I am my own team, unfortunately. So but a lot of the time it's through personal relationships. My background was doing a lot of lower budget British crime stuff where there's a solid pool of recognisable names that you can dip into quite easily. You know these people and you've got the numbers in your phone and you can contact them directly. With the last film that I did, I had a lot of favours. It was Jason Fleming's directorial debut. So Jason's a wonderful guy that everyone loves. And we had a lot of favours on that movie. We had one of the best casting directors in Lucinda Dyson who pulled out all the stops. I think if you're doing a low-budget movie, you should do it yourself. If you're in that world, there's plenty of Facebook groups and sites on social media where you can get direct contact with actors themselves. For example, on Eat Local, I had a scene where Annette Crosby comes out of a house to a Cilla Black song, and she's holding a machine gun, and just before she shouts, "Eat this, you sons of bitches," or something like that. Margaret Thatcher, the ladies not for turning speech plays over the top of her, and we were in the final bits of the grade, and we just said, "Have we got this bit cleared?" And we weren't too sure. And we then start to investigate, and the Thatcher Foundation controls all audio recordings of anything that she ever says, and they will never approve it for anything commercial. But we really wanted to keep it. So on Twitter, I tweeted to Steve Nallen, that used to be on Spitting Image in the 80s doing Margaret Thatcher. He responded straight away. The next day, he was in a recording studio in Soho for me, and in 5 minutes had done the entire line, and we paid him £100, I think, and we gave him a credit in the film, and we sent him a copy of the DVD, and he was a happy man. And it's it's actually better than having Margaret Thatcher's voice. You've got Steve Nallen's voice. So you can do a lot yourself at a certain level. The one thing I love about the British independent film industry is that it should be a family, and as a rule it is a family, and people are willing to help you out and do favours and put you in touch with people. But the minute you step up and you want proper names, you have to have an agent.
Yeah.
It's a Danny King script as well. With one of his works. Danny.
I have questions for both of you. Do you think the way everything's heading, that distributors and the sales agent, the way that it's been in the past, the sort of the advances and then the 50% for the distributor and the 20% for the sales agent, do you think that model has died? And do you think that the aggregators will be the future?
Personally, I do. I think it's an antiquated model that we've been running down over the last 30 years. There was an American sales agent I know that don't take any fees, but they stump up all costs, but it's a 50-50 split, which to me is quite a transparent thing to do. They take the risk because they're taking it to market, and because it's expensive as a sales agent to take yourself to market. For Berlin, for example, to have a stand and have your team there and have your hotel, you're spending €50,000 probably on that trip for your team to go there and sell the movie. So they're willing to stump that up. Aggregators are sort of taking that over, but the smart distributors are actually becoming the producers as well now. So you have the distributor that's also the sales agent and also producing their own content. And that's happening with a number of them. So they're doing everything within house. It's difficult. Most films don't see profit, and that's the problem. And you think, okay, well, you've sold $200,000 of revenue, and they go, yeah, but we've got $200,000 of costs that we've spent doing it, and they think they've been ripped off, and I guess they haven't, but I guess I can see why they think they have, but you can't do it without them. We'll see.
I wonder how long sales agents will be around for. If that's like they're going to be around for much longer, sales agents, so that kind of model,
Well, agents are already buying sales agents.
Yeah.
I mean, the agents are now becoming super powerful.
We were discussing CAA earlier and they package their own talent into movies, come on board, they help bring in finance. And they come on board as executive producers as well, and that's really nice. If you can do it, you've got access to a talent pool.
Exactly. In fact, it's a good point you say that, Neil, because we've got a film on my portfolio called Chimera, and it stars the guy from Lost. You know that one.
I've seen it. Yeah.
Of course, you saw it there. The screen with, weren't you? Henry Ian Cusack, and CAA are his agent. And they have said, well, happily, you can happily sell it elsewhere from the sale agent, but we have North American rights, full stop. And then they've taken that. So the agents are like, oh, well, that's the biggest territory, like a big one to sell. They're like, oh, we'll have to the rest then, So again, they've lost the agents lost a lot of potential money there, because a lot of money gets, obviously in South America, it's for a lot of money normally, isn't it? It's for. Yeah, power.
I only 27% sold them.
Yeah.
Great deal.
Well, with this particular film, it was, I know it's sensitive, but it was a super clever budget. They really worked and pulled out stops, and you wouldn't believe what it was made for. And consequently, I'm sure the actor got probably equity minimum or scale. So if the agents are putting their talent into it, there's a value to that as well.
And it's going to open the South London Film Festival, thanks to us. So there you go, so a little FYI, you can watch it then, he might even be there. But again, that's the thing where it won't get a release theatrically, that movie. Even he can't, because it's not like an opening night name, is he? Or
No, he's a TV name.
He's a TV name.
Yeah.
TV name. Yeah.
Here we go, he's the guy in Lost. Okay.
Yeah.
What else has he done?
And Scandal. Oh, they're TV.
Yeah.
Can I just follow up with one other question? So if sales agents and distributors are going to go and aggregators are going to replace them, who's going to make the sales to TV then?
The aggregators will.
It will be the aggregators.
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty is, most with independent films as well, when putting the budget together, most budgets don't even cover the necessary deliverables to be able to deliver to TV. The amount of films that are made without a TV mix, and Chris will probably back this up, I mean, you won't get a sale to Germany without a TV mix for a TV. They're so strict in terms of their deliverables and what they want. And I worry about the future for independent, low-budget films and where they go and how you raise the money, because I can't see who's going to invest in them, because where the DVD market's dropped off substantially everywhere. It's still around. In the UK, it's still 50% of the home entertainment revenue is still physical formats. In America, it's still strong as well. But there's a limited amount of shelf space. And if supermarkets are your primary destination for buying your film, and they have a top 40, 39, I think Tesco soon are going to go to studio content only in their supermarket. And so the only place your film could end up potentially is listed on Amazon. And you just can't generate enough sales to justify it. The amount of films that are being released now that I did a film that in 2013, and week one DVD was 21,000 week one, which was a solid number for a low budget independent. The sequel was released 3 years later, and it was 4,500 week one, which was still a good number for a direct to DVD title then. But it's a massive drop off, and most films now. There was a Nicolas Cage movie that was released direct to DVD, and I think it sold 1,500 week one. And the distributor, I think, UK paid $300,000 to acquire this movie, and the movie was probably a $6 million movie. But there's so much content out there, and they're all fighting for the same space. Somebody needs to work out how you monetize films going forward for independent filmmakers.
And also, I hear through the grapevine, you can clarify this for me, that the VOD rights are now for sales agents like quite a lot of, quite valuable, aren't they? So they can sell them for a lot more money than they probably could for DVD and Blu-ray and TV.
Yes and no. There's no transparency there's very little transparency on VOD revenue. If you have an aggregator that has your film for VOD and they release more than one film on that same day, the report that comes back to them will be a combined revenue number. There won't be any transparency on what each individual film has done. So trying to work out what your share is of that thing becomes very difficult. With DVD, everything goes through the official charts company and it's logged, and I can log on and see where it's sold, how many it's sold, and they also do official iTunes download numbers, so that's easily available. But VOD, for me, it's a little bit in the ether. If your sales agent sends you an Excel spreadsheet with revenue on, that's not good enough. You want to see an official report back from iTunes, official report back from whatever platform it's on, and it needs to be a single report of just your film and the revenue that's done.
So nobody gets a report. The sales agents don't get a report.
It depends. If you're the solitary film out on that day through that distributor, then it can only be your film.
Right.
But if they release more than one, it's so there's.
Get your own sales report. That's just crazy, isn't it?
It'd be better if Milky Way, because that's their thing. They aggregate across Europe, multiple VOD platforms.
Get him next time.
And it's a bit of a grey area, in all honesty.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. But I've heard a new thing called blockchain VOD coming out.
Oh, I'm not aware.
It's in Screen Daily today, where you get like blockchain money as a report of everything.
Well, that's a really accurate way of reporting it.
It's totally accurate, because you can't not be. That's what blockchain is, and that's a new thing that companies are doing now.
Well,
after we did a panel here, actually, someone mentioned Amazon Direct, so I looked into it. It's 15 cents an hour.
Yeah.
So you
it's like
Spotify.
And apparently that's been cut down, I was told, at Berlin. I went to a meeting with a sales agent. It's gone from 15 to 6.
Has it?
Yeah.
I know.
It's per minute, so even if someone watches 5 minutes of your film, it adds up to an hour.
Yeah.
So if you had 1 million views, you make 200 grand.
It's a bit off subject, but I'm not. I love Netflix and I watch it avidly, but I think it's turned films into fast food. When a film like The Cloverfield drops, it gets binge watched by 7 million people in a couple of days, and then they go, okay, what's next? And The Irishman, which is going to be a $200 million Scorsese movie with De Niro, Pacino, Keitel, Pesci, goes straight to Netflix. They're funding it. It goes straight to Netflix, and you watch it, and you go, okay, well, I enjoyed it, but what's next? And there's not the build-up, there's not the anticipation, there's not the film reviews, and you go into the theatre to watch it. And
Film theatrical release that though.
It depends. That will break their model if they do. That will be the film that breaks Netflix's model.
They will do. It's such a huge investment.
Yeah, I mean, it apparently 200 is the real number as well. It's crazy, but there's so much content, and if you're like me, you go on Netflix. I struggle to find something to watch that I want to watch. I don't like the layout, and I think Amazon is a better site to find films on, but I struggle to find something I want to watch.
Well, Avi Lerner, did you see that thing he wrote recently? 'Cause he's sort of retired now, isn't he? And he was saying at the top end, Amazon and Netflix, the most they ever pay is like a third of your budget. So he was saying on his huge films I do with, you know, all the big action movies he does, that's the business model is broken because that's a deal I have to have, but it ruins the rest of the world for me.
If Netflix come in and buy your film globally, let's say, they pay you in instalments over 18 months, and they pay you whatever percentage of the budget of the film. They've only taken the VOD rights, SVOD rights, but all the other rights are now worthless because you're not going to get anyone to buy a DVD if it sits on Netflix. You're not going to get anyone to buy it off iTunes. If
they're doing a day and date release, they have to do a day and date release, do they? As in, if it was on the cinema.
This is going to be totally model breaking.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he was saying. You can't make money now.
Yeah.
It's broken.
So we need to try and rip it up and start again. I don't know. I have no answers, but it's.
In that case, the music industry. I mean, that's where we're going, really. I mean, look what happened in the music industry. It became all about hardware. It's free.
Yeah, it's a live thing.
And that's kind of what's happening now. You know, Amazon don't care about the product. It's this product.
Yeah. So do you think forewalling's gone as well, which you used to do?
No, well, I've done it recently because, again, if you do the theatrical VOD release, you spend a small amount of money on P&A to put your film out there. Same day it will go on to VOD at a premium price. But the price, it used to be that people would buy it at a premium price, but now they look at it and go, what, $9.99 to rent it? I'm not paying $9.99 to rent it. And then you're up for 4 weeks, then you go dark for 4 weeks, and then you come out to buy and rent properly at a normal price when the physical comes out. But all your advertising was 8 weeks earlier when you launched onto the VOD. So most people don't have the money to spend again to re-promote.
Kids now, I mean, you know, like the sort of 16-year-olds in our family and stuff, they never pay for anything. They can get things they can get the latest Marvel film before it's even on the cinema, on HD, on Super HD on the computer. I mean, that whole generation, they expect everything to be free. We'll still go to the cinema sometimes in a little gang or something, as for a social outing, but they won't pay for anything because they know where to find it free. You know?
And we were talking about this before. I mean, the last film that I released came out in Germany before the UK. Within 1 week, there were 3,000 illegal uploads, and you pay a company $1,000 a month to take them down, because you can't sell any other territory while it's sitting on YouTube for nothing. And there was a Brighton comedian called Sean Walsh, and there's a YouTube clip of him going viral at the moment, and he's joking about being nostalgic about trying to illegally download via LimeWire, and it's a joke. So he's generating money and he's joking about stealing films.
Amazing.
But the genie's at the bottle. I mean, that's it. You can't fix that. You know?
So how's that working for TV when you're trying to sell to telly as well? You pre-sold to telly at times, haven't you?
No, not pre-sold to TV. If you have your mine with Eat Local, and the first pay TV window will either be Netflix or Sky, hopefully.
Right.
And Sky will be my preference because they pay you and then put it on, whereas Netflix pay you in instalments, and obviously you're trying to recoup your investment on the movie. But again, Sky are paying and Netflix paying a lot less because they've got a lot to choose from. And is your movie essential for them? Probably not. You think it is and you hope it is. TV around most of Europe is the only revenue. If you go into territories that don't have DVD markets, TV is the revenue, and even then, it can be small.
Right. What sort of release do you get on telly? Is it once a year, once a month?
Again, it's deal dependent. It'd be a 12-month deal or an 18-month deal for X amount of showings. I've got a number of films on London Live who play nothing virtually, but they show it 1 million times a week, and that in some sort of way does actually generate an audience for your movies.
Right. Yeah.
But you want to be hopeful then you're still in physical distribution in the retailers that are out there that will then still buy the DVD, or nobody's going to rent it digitally, people still do collect, mostly men, but they still do collect DVDs. I mean, Chris did EPK stuff for us on movies before, and I'm a big fan of EPKs. iTunes did something where you used to be able to buy an extra thing where you get behind the scenes stuff, and with Netflix that doesn't happen now. Netflix, you just have the movie, you don't know anything else about it, it's not being theatrical, so it's gone straight to Netflix. And as a film fan, I actually quite like the behind the scenes stuff. I like the interviews, and so maybe that's something that can still stay, and you create a premium package with extra content, and it'll be a bonus to sell your movie with.
Okay. Do we now need to go to PRing ourselves as filmmakers then, rather than films? Is that what the internet's for? Especially for film festivals. Should filmmakers go to film festivals?
Definitely.
And just PR themselves as a
the film sells themselves as well. So it's like they obviously sell themselves in a Q&A, but also the film is, their business card.
Yeah.
So there's going to be somebody who's going to be from a good sales agency in the audience, and that's pretty important that they're there for presence.
Yeah.
It's important to be there because you never know who's that. Someone in the crowd, as La La Land says. A lot can happen because festivals have like an abundance opportunity available, and that's people, and that's seeing the movies, that's collaborations, there's a whole lot, so you have to be there. But that's obviously not just every single festival. If it's going to be like the Back Garden Door Festival, then no, because someone's going to be there of any kind of really important, shall we say, more just like local audiences. But then something like Dinard, something like Berlin, something like Sundance, Tribeca, all that has an industry presence, and there's going to be workshops, and there's going to be ways to learn, that you have to definitely go to expand your horizons and know what the trends are and where you sit in that field.
Even without a film, you should turn up as a film festival, a filmmaker, should you?
I would recommend any filmmaker going to the Dinard Film Festival. It's it's in Brittany, Normandy, and it's a tiny little beautiful seaside. But the people there, this town, they love their cinema. They're so appreciative of the art and the skill. And bizarrely, when we showed the film there, during the credits, they clap every head of department in the credits. Because they appreciate everyone that's worked on the movie.
You have to be invited though.
Yeah, for your film to go, you can buy tickets to get into the thing. But
Fantastic.
yeah, it's wonderful, and it really.
Roughly.
Good question.
Runs normally it runs in September.
October.
Film, so it's basically they charter a plane.
We all fly over.
All British film industry goes to one hotel.
On the panel last year was Phil Davis and James Darcy, and but the panels are good as well. They have panels of actors. The guy that was Billy Elliot's dad is a jobbing Geordie actor, but he's a wonderful guy. Did a wonderful speech about his career, and you say Phil Davis and James Darcy were on the film panel with other people, and they all have their own talks. But it really does reignite your.
Sold out, aren't they?
Yeah.
Proper cinephiles.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that 4 performances completely sold out of My Little Tiny Film. So chuffed, and they European audiences liked it more than English speaking.
Another one that's like that's not as massive as Dinard, but it's called Filmfest Emden, and it's based in Germany. And they are a festival which showed German and English movies.
Right.
And they had the German premiere of Brastoff one year, and the whole audience was just in absolute awe of that movie. And there's filmmakers there doing a Q&A, and they were like, they loved the performances and everything. So it went down really well. A different audience, so it's amazing.
The other good thing about Dinard is if you've got French distribution, not only do you do Dinard, but they'll line up all your PR for that, so it really helps your French release.
It does, yeah, and also because a lot of festivals will not be able to do that, say cover your PR as well. Some do. I mean, like Fright Fest, they obviously have their own media standards, and there's press there from Fright Fest, from other kind of genre kind of publications and that kind of thing. But not all of them do, so sometimes you have to get your own kind of like people there to see it and reviews in advance to build the word of mouth.
Sounds great. You mentioned genre. How important is genre still? You were chatting about it earlier.
Yeah,
Do you have to be very specific still?
And I apologise. I can get opinionated on copying. It's just my opinion. So, I didn't come from a theatrical background. I came from a direct-to-DVD, really commercial, obvious genres. I created a couple of I wrote pictures and treatments for films, and then used to take them to people to make. I made a Christmas dog movie called Bone Alone, which
That sounds a bit like a porn movie.
after it was released, I was told it was a Ron Jeremy title as well. I had the guys that went on to make Sharknado. They made The Asylum. They made it. They knocked it out quickly. It did a great job. We made a Christmas cat movie. I did a panel at the BFI once, and there was all these young filmmakers, and I said, what was the number one non-theatrical genre in DVD this year? And the hands were going up. Drama, war, comedy, and it went on for a few minutes. And is that it? Okay. And it was Christmas dog movies. Genuinely, 7 of the top 10 highest ranking non-theatrical titles were Christmas dog movies. It used to be that it was WWE wrestlers in action movies, Vikings, zombies, Nazis, and male fodder. A generalisation is that women buy coats, bags and shoes, men buy DVDs, games and gadgets. And it's pretty, looking at what's sold in supermarkets, it pretty much backs it up. Women, there's been research that women choose what to stream, what to download on the TV, and in couples they'll be deciding what they go and see at the cinema, but don't necessarily feel the need to have 5 copies of Blade Runner, different cuts in steel tins on alphabetical order, which is a male trait. It's something, and the DVD market was driven by male obsessive collection. Yeah.
It's the genre, isn't it?
No, but if you're theatrical, all genres go out the window. Anything can work if you're theatrical. If you're not theatrical, don't do low-budget comedy. Never has worked ever. There's not been a single low-budget independent comedy film that's worked ever. Everyone goes, oh yeah, but what about Shaun of the Dead? It was off the back of a TV show, and it was backed by Polygram, and it was a big movie. They just don't work. If you can't break through cast. There's so many comedies. We were talking about an investor earlier that's just joined a known sales company, and he did a low-budget film about pensioners robbing a bank recently, and there was a reasonable amount of money spent on the movie, and it came and it went, and there was a good cast, and it was an enjoyable movie, and it's been on the platforms. I doubt it's been profitable. It's just so difficult to make. Family movies do okay, if now supermarkets are the main driver, but as a rule, it's still war, action, zombies.
Yes, zombies are still going.
Yeah, you can't kill a zombie.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's good with film festivals. You've got your own genre film festivals, and one of the biggest and best is Sitges Film Festival. That has a huge kind of diverse range of genre films. They are quite broad in terms of what kind of they classify as like genre. So there's stuff there that wouldn't be typical kind of maybe think horror, but features elements of what they call the fantastic. So fantastic means war, thriller, sci-fi, zombie, whatever. And there's some really good, weird stuff and little gems that you find there. So that's like the big festival for genre.
Very good. Jumping a little bit, you got any more advice about real world advertising, like the tube poster thing? Once you've made your film and you've got it online somehow, how do you get people to watch it once it is online?
Oh, what about taxis? Advertising on taxis.
Is that cheap?
I've never done it. It depends. If you've managed to be in a fortunate position that you funded your movie, and you have a decent sales agent on board, and they've sold it to territories and who've paid in advances, the distributor then is committed to making it work. They've paid in advance, so they will spend an appropriate amount marketing your film. As I said earlier, if you're in a position where you're self-releasing your own film, it's a money pit. You do the best you can and you spend an appropriate amount, but there has to be a cut-off point. The amount of independent films that they pay for their own theatrical openings in the West End and hire a local club and have a party, and it's all money down the toilet. Yeah. The first goal should be sell it for an advance to a distributor. They're going to back it up with a marketing campaign, and then if they're good enough, they're bringing you on board to consult with how they work your film, because as a filmmaker you want to help promote it as much as you can.
So if you are self-distributing, you're doing Google AdWords and...
I'm too old, I don't understand it. I really tried. I created an advert on Facebook and I paid like $20 just to see, I was trying to work out how to do it. And then for the next week it was deducted. I think it took about $200 out of my account and I don't know where it went. And if somebody tells me something's had 1 million impressions, that means absolutely nothing to me. I come from a world where I want it quantified. What does that mean? What money have I made out of impressions? And you've made no money out of impressions. It means somebody's seen it, apparently. Yeah. But then we've all seen stuff that we have to wait for 3 seconds before we shut it down, and we move on to the thing that we want to see. I'm sure people involved in that industry will tell you that it does work and it's incredible, and they could probably justify it. I'm a bit of a sceptic, unfortunately.
Plus, it's economy of scale, you know. I mean, if you've got one film, you're self-distributing. People aren't that interested. If you've got 12, you know, you're doing it all the time, you can get fantastic deals. So again, when you're self-distributing, you end up paying top dollar for everything, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're fortunate that your film also is part of a franchise or has a built-in audience, that's a big chunk of your marketing. I mean, Carnaby Films have been making the Foot Soldier movies. There's been about 15 Essex Boys movies made in the last
last week.
But these are still reasonably successful. They did great numbers on iTunes. They still do great numbers physically on DVD. And I think the last one was Pat Tate and it was Craig Fairbrass. I think the next one might be Tony Tucker and they put Terry Stone in it. But it's a franchise. And if you've got a built-in audience for something, that's half your job done, which is why there's so many remakes and sequels, because half the audience is there already.
Yeah, it's got to be based on a true life story, a book, or.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a book and that book has an audience and that has, that's something to build on.
I think actually just about moving on. It's a random thing here, but about awards. So, with the BAFTAs for a independent feature film, whether it be documentary or fiction, whatever it is. You have to do a cinema release, which has to be done by yourself or by a distribution company if they don't take it on. Yeah. So that can obviously add up, because it has to be on 10 screens for 7 days. Right. So again, to get through to certain awards, you have to have a budget then to do distribution theatrically. And we're doing it for George Michael, but we've got 2 offers on the table now. We can either do it ourselves with the quotes we've got from Martin Myers, whoever said that, and probably you. And the other offer we've got is from a distribution company, which obviously will obviously be very different costs. So doing self-distribution, we've got 3 different options to do the full release. So that's like, we've got quotes that are 50k or a bit less. That could be less because we've got the in-house PR team for George. Or we could have the offer, which is, they said if you just do the PR yourself and advertising, then they cover the rest. So there's a massive difference in cost there. So when a distributor wants to get behind your film, then if it's a good deal, then negotiate for it to be the best you can, because it will save a fortune on self-distribution. Like, that was huge. Like, you just things you don't even think of, like the virtual print fee. And I was like, oh, well, this comes in there as well. And obviously advertising and PR can add up if it's the wrong company. It's all about getting the deals, but it won't be cheap.
And that's what I'm saying, when doing nobody puts in their initial budget for a movie all the ancillary costs once you've actually made the movie, and their real costs, and the amount of filmmakers that end up spending their own money putting films on to screens and put onto film. And if you can get it in all your costings originally, it's definitely going to be how, if you're in a fortunate position where you find the funding, it needs to be for the whole amount and not just, because even the deliverables, nobody covers the cost of the deliverables.
Which are now running at about 85k.
Yeah, and there's a few scams. Some will tell you if you do it in Belgium, we'll give you 45% rebate on it, but it only works if you spend over 100,000 on your post, and then you have to hire a separate Belgium post producer, and there's a middleman that takes a fee, and the prices have been inflated anyway to justify it, and you're better off just finding a good person in Soho that will do it for a decent price anyway.
Yeah. And what sort of costs are you looking at just to get a digital transfer done so you can put it on the cinema systems?
Well,
if you were going to do a full
the sales agent's going to give you like a 5-page list of what you have to do. It now works out about 85k just for standard deliverables.
But that's for theatrical. It's full theatrical delivery schedule. Yeah.
What you just want in one screen?
I mean, if you want a DCP, there's a very good. Quite frankly, I think he's the best post-production guy in London. He's a Welsh guy that worked on my last film. He ended up making DCPs in his bedroom for me overnight. It can be done, and they're perfectly acceptable and real. And if you went to someone else, that DCP would have cost you £500. And if you there are good people out there.
Yeah. So it's only a file format.
Yeah. But there's an old-fashioned list of costs that are attributed to everything that people are still trying to work towards.
Crazy money. Can we talk about something positive? Any positive advice you've got for up-and-coming filmmakers that are already doing short films, want to push to the next level, maybe a first feature?
Golden rule, you need a strategy, and you have to think of the end result now. The last step's always the first. So say it's your first short film, you have to think about where you want your world premiere, and then do your research in which festivals and what kind of film that you're going to be making. Is it for those kind of festivals? That's really important. Figure out what your goals are, what you want to achieve, and plan your budgets early. Don't do a film and then be like, got no money to get my DCP, for travelling to festivals, for doing a postcard, doing a trailer, got to do it out of my own pocket and do a half-assed job of it. Do everything as early as possible. That's the golden rule. First step's always the last.
Yeah, cool.
I would say talk to as many people and we're fortunate that I'm not a big social media fan, even though I'm on it quite a bit, but there is a family out there you can talk to, people can share experiences and get as much advice as you can, and then ultimately make your decision, but do it after speaking to as many people, because there are positive stories. There's a lot of we repeat the horror stories more than we repeat the positive stories, but there are positive stories out there, and there are success stories. There's two very hardworking British-Nigerian filmmakers that did a film called The Intent. Femi and Nick, and they worked their arse off. They couldn't get funding anywhere. They raised it all themselves. They went away, shot it. They self-distributed, and they easily covered their entire budget on this movie to the extent they're now they've been in Jamaica, I think, filming a sequel to it, and they're really smart, hard-working guys that weren't prepared to take no for an answer. They were fortunate they had jobs on the side, which we all do, which cover our daily costs while we're trying to get our films off the ground, because it's a slow path. But there are success stories out there, and
the machine covered its costs.
Yeah, it was $1 million. Was it the budget on the machines?
3/4.
Yeah. And
they sold it really well.
Yeah.
Just on the script, no stars, nothing.
No, and you look at The Raid. The Raid was $1 million movie with a Welsh director shooting in. Was it Indonesia or somewhere? A martial arts movie by a Welsh director in Indonesia, which absolutely killed it. I mean, and he's gone on to great. So I'm not a writer. I don't have the ability to write. I can write a treatment and create an initial idea, and then I have to hand that to a proper writer, because I totally respect them. But if your script is strong enough, everything comes off the script. And if it's good enough, you look at what Blumhouse are doing. So Get Out was essentially an extended Twilight Zone episode. It was a brilliant one, incredibly well acted, but relatively low budget, and Jason Blum is an incredibly clever man when it comes to scripts. And you look at all his films, he's now just made a family movie. He just remade Benji.
I mean, The Gift, I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
His first proper grown-up film.
Yeah.
The Gift, oh yeah.
I think The Purge was a $1 million movie, the first Purge film, and they can spot. So if the story's strong enough, and especially if you're in that genre, if you're in the horror genre, you don't need name casts so much. The genre and the script is often enough to carry over, because there isn't anyone in Get Out particularly. So
It doesn't do stars.
No. I mean, I think The Purge was Lena Headey and Ethan Hawke, who were down on. They weren't A names by any means at that time, and it just killed it. So let's talk to people. There's a million one, and I can recommend some groups where people just swap ideas and come along to things like this, where you make contacts. And many of you probably know people like David Nicholas Wilkinson, who's on Facebook. And if you don't friend him, he will give you a million anecdotes. But he holds networking events, and Greg Hall, that was going to be here, does networking events. and you really make really good contacts at these things, and these people stay with you. And
he knows all the elephant traps, David.
Yeah, this guy's an actor turned producer turned distributor, who's recently now at the age of, I don't know.
108.
He's gone back to acting, as well as still producing and directing.
Yeah.
Just network.
Well, good. Any final questions before we drink beer?
I was just wondering, because I teach a bit and talk to a lot of students. When we were making short films all those years ago, we used to make really good money from them, so it was just a few really. We used to sell them to internet companies, and we made a living from kind of blues. And lots of people have asked me how to make money from short films. Is there actually a way of making money from short films anymore?
It's getting smaller by the day. The short film market is very small. I think the companies who are leading companies like Network Island and Shorts International and possibly Dazzle, they think they're just about break even because they tend to sell them to, say, TV companies, but the fees get smaller up front. So, for example, one of our films, The Boy with the Camera Face, we got our sales agent and we actually did a deal ourselves, Channel 4. It was on a TV show called The Shooting Gallery, so it's like a midnight kind of weird short film show thing. And they gave us an upfront MG of £500. We were like, oh, great. But they said, it's exposure for the filmmaker on TV. We're like, oh, okay. He is on TV already. It's the filmmaker. As films on, he does TV, so it's not that exposure. But, that's their argument. And also because the time of the day it's screened on television is after midnight, just 10 minutes after midnight, so it can't be the full price they pay for a prime time slot. So, and also Arte, so that's like an art house TV station, they have a few shorts, and they paid a bit more, but that was about 4 years ago. So, it's not going to be the same as it is.
It used to be $100 a minute.
Yeah.
I think again, I come from a commercial background where everything has to we were having a conversation earlier, everything has to justify the money that you raise. But I think a clever way might be that if you found an investor wanting to invest in the filmmaker makes a short, which is essentially an on-screen CV, and the investor will then get a point out of any subsequent films that filmmaker may go on to make. So the filmmaker sells shares in himself. Essentially, because funding is hard. A good friend of mine has made a short called, it won awards everywhere, and he had an American actor that was in all the Bourne movies, and it was a 20-minute short, fantastic, won awards. He's been trying to get features off the ground. He's raised $50,000 to shoot the opening scene of a proposed $2 million movie, and he's using that to go around to all the production companies and all the investors say, this is what I've managed to do for 20 minutes or 50,000. Imagine for another 2 million, what can this film look like? And he's getting traction. But I think the people that have invested in that short will be partners in whatever feature comes out of that.
That's a good point. In fact, it's a good point today, actually. I met with a client of mine, and what he's doing is Creative England are helping him fund his short. He's done ones before that have done really big festivals and had stars in it, etc. But what the plan is that do the short, film it in June, July, I think time, go into the festivals, and then there'll be through that. It's like the blueprint for the feature. So that they're already going to be doing the feature with them. They're going to raise money through that as a calling card. Well, not calling card, as like the proof of concept, so to speak, to say this will be what will be as a feature-length version, but just expand it out. And it's a really high-end short film. It's like already going to be 75k the budget. So then the feature film will be obviously probably about 100 million maybe. But because someone like Creative England behind it is helping get those extra funds by ticking the boxes for their funding.
Chris made money on this short.
Yeah, well, I sold my short for £3,000. It's a Short International.
Yes.
And that's 2013.
Yeah.
A mate of mine's just directed a film called The Silent Child. Been nominated for an Oscar.
Oh, I know that. Yeah, that's a great film.
They 500 quid like 4 years later.
See, that's terrible.
It's taken me 4 years to break even on the budget for that short film. Basically, just royalties every 3 months, basically.
Yeah.
There must be pennies more than pounds.
I mean, my advice would be don't make a short. If you can make a feature.
Yeah, make a feature.
If you've got the money, if you've got £5,000 to make a short, make a £5,000 feature. It's probably you've got more chance in A, getting seen, and B, potentially recouping your investment than you have from ever doing a short.
Plus a lot of the big finance companies now, who would make $15, $20 million movies, some of them are now financing like $1 million movies, you know, so it's always really useful to, because things change so fast in this industry. So sometimes, you know, you put things in a box, and you think, well, I won't bother going to them because they do that, and then next week they're not doing that. so that's I find it really useful. You've really got to scan everything and keep your eyes and ears open, really. You know.
Well, you have
Because
to.
opportunities come up all the time, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we were discussing earlier as well. I'm in the midst of putting together finance on €1 million movie, and it will be easier if the budget was 10 million, because it's easier to raise 10 million apparently than it is to raise 1 million, which is backwards in my mind. But all the money people that are in the chain, there's not enough in it at 1 million for them to take all their fees and get their fingers in the pie. But there is a 10 million. So think big, I guess, is the answer. You know.
Well, you have to think big. I mean, you have to have that big vision, you know, and then you work your way towards it, and you get there with it. But it has to be the right strategy, of course. But yeah, you're right about shorts. I mean, I love short films because I do work with filmmakers that obviously have short films, and you know, really good short films do really on the circuit, and they do a lot for the filmmaker with the right kind of short. So we specialise in feature films, and we do shorts like by request, on a request basis, because we have to make sure that it is going to be a short that will really help the filmmaker and help festivals as well. So it has to be the right kind of short to really, you know, serve its purpose, shall we say, in that respect. Because some filmmaker came to me and said, I've got a short here, and it was very well made. The story wasn't great, but the budget was 110k for a short. I was like, couldn't you make a feature for that? You know.
Well, who's the South African director who did District?
District 9.
District 9.
Yeah.
District 9. He's got. Check out his website. He's made 5 shorts, which changed the game for short making. There's a massive post-apocalyptic alien invasion 20-minute short with Sigourney Weaver in the lead in this movie. It's incredible, but he's made them all for a relatively low, I mean, they're huge probably compared to, but relatively low cost. And you can look up his website and it's all there. But for me, the best short ever, there was a Spanish short made in the 70s called La Cabina. And if no one's ever seen it, it's incredible. It's a guy, it's silent film, a guy goes into a telephone box, door shuts behind him, and he can't get out. And then the telephone box is picked up, put on the back of a truck, driven through, I think it's Madrid possibly, and then he can't get out, and people are passing him. And at the end of the film, he's put in a giant warehouse with hundreds of other telephone boxes with skeletons, decaying body. And the film finishes with another telephone box being put in its place, and a little boy going in, getting after his ball. And it was shown once in the UK, I think in the late 70s, early 80s. It's on YouTube now.
TV, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I saw it.
Yeah, and it's incredible and really smart. And in Spain, it's really well known. It's not particularly known here, but it's the smartness of the script, smartness of the story.
Really simple idea.
A really simple idea, but executed really well. I think that's about 20 minutes or half an hour.
All good. Any final questions?
Web series is what do you think of that? Social films, or is it?
I'm a bit old. I don't know what Red YouTube is. Is there a channel? I get these channels on my TV that I can subscribe to them and pay an extra $3.99, and I don't. I'm sure it's a great way. Anything that can get your work in front of people, and I'm sure there is an audience. It's not my age, it's not my demographic. I'm sure there's an audience that do watch it. I wouldn't honestly have a clue about web series at all.
Web series have their place at film festivals. In fact, there are even just web series film festivals, and the quality can vary. But I went to one the other day because I was asked to attend a web series film festival. I was like, oh. But what I saw there was extremely high quality, and they're short and sweet, like, you know, episodes of 5-10 minutes maximum. And what I did see, I went to the film festival in LA called the Valley Film Festival, and they had this women's short film program. One of my clients' films was in there, so I was there watching it. And then there was 2 episodes from web series, and it was interesting because it was set in a comedy set in an abortion clinic, and it was really well scripted, like razor sharp, and that has now become a TV show, like a half-an-hour TV show in the States. And the States are big on web series over there, really big on web series, especially at festivals. It's like has its own big programming and own awards and stuff. It's a big thing. In terms of distribution-wise, I don't know. In terms of, I think it's not going to happen. But festival-wise, it's certainly got a place there. And online, potentially, could do something on VOD, on something on YouTube. But they were looking because that was all about them. I said earlier in my what I mentioned previously, one of my responses is it's all about the script. And this is razor sharp dialogue because it just everything about it, the timing of it, the comedy, was brilliant. And to get to that, that was for HBO, just pick it up.
All good. One last question: is there any online resource you can recommend, like a podcast, a website, a networking thing? I know you mentioned a couple of people.
I tend to. I think. Obviously, the Screen Daily, Screen International, Hollywood Reporter, and all the sites, because it's really good to go on these and see what's actually happening, what is getting financed, what is getting made, what is getting released, and look to a certain extent. Look at the Box Office Mojo sites. Look at what films are taking, and because when you put together your finance for your movie and part of your investment pack is comparable titles, you really need those now to be within the last 12 weeks. It used to be that people pick films in the last 2 to 5 years and look at all the historical box office. And it's now we're moving so quickly that you've got to have films that are literally within the last whatever. And when you present that to someone else, another potential investor, you need to have updated them again because it needs to be in real time and it needs to be realistic because you can't convince. They're not stupid. These people that look after the funds and look after the investments. They know they can smell bullshit and you get one chance with these guys, so try and make it as accurate as possible and get someone else to look over your pack before you send it out to anyone as well. And there are plenty of people in the industry, and when you network, the people maybe will help you do that. But yeah, up-to-date information, see what's being done, see what's being made, and go on to the filmmaker groups as well, where and just see what other people are saying.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, very good.
I'd actually recommend, in terms of film festivals, a website called festivalfocus.org. It gives you then updates on new upcoming festivals, established festivals, and just ones that are coming up. It's actually a good kind of database and resource to find festivals that will be good for your film, both niche and general ones. So that's a good little tip there. I always like that one, better than I do with other kind of websites. And also, I would say is like you said about those. Dailies, those film trade press.
Yeah.
I actually think Sight and Sound's pretty good. For to give you really good in terms of like the reviews. They're quite
If you follow someone called the Ray Guns, a guy called Tim Murray, who's been a trade journalist for 30 years in the UK, all home entertainment since inception, and he reports on what's actually selling physically, both studio and independent, and he talks through campaigns and marketing campaigns and how it's worked. And it's a really detailed site, and he's a really good guy, and he's easily accessible. You can ask him anything on Twitter. It's called the Ray Gun. The guy's name's Tim Murray, but it's a weekly. Once you're on his mailing list, you get a weekly newsletter which will break down everything that's sold in the home entertainment market that week, and numbers and marketing campaigns. Well, numbers are easily available, and if anyone wants numbers, I can give them numbers and stuff. That's not a problem. But in terms of what the marketing spend is, where things have gone, and how distribution is, it's a really good site.
Wow, sounds great.
Good stuff. We thank
Can you wrap that Sight and Sound, because they're one of the few periodicals that actually print extended listings of all the financiers. They give you absolutely
and then you see the patterns, and you're like, they did that one.
Yeah,
that one.
interesting.
Yeah, and you say,
the full crew list.
Yeah, like when I go to cinema, I always like when it's like an independent movie that maybe it's like a British one or whatever. Then I like to always say to the end and go, there he was in it, he did that film, and they worked on that, and it's like, and there's Bob, that kind of thing. So it's a pattern chain, the chain, the chain.
And it gives you the sales and the distribution.
Yes, it was there. It was like, I did that before.
Because that's why, where information is so readily available now. If you go to a meeting with anyone, you can find their footprint somewhere on social media. You can find out what they've done, and it's always good to go into these meetings knowing the background of everyone you're sitting in front of.
Yeah.
And IMDb is good for that as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we thank Rebekah and Rod?
Thank you.